Man, what the? Slackers. Yep.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. I'm Bill with another episode of Umpteenth Time Hearing, the program where I'm bringing out a whole selection of music from decades past, offbeat songs that would not be familiar to mainstream audiences, except perhaps in some more so than others in different parts of the world, different age groups, but such a cross spectrum that not everyone is likely to know all of these songs. And this time around, I've got a really, really interesting group, The Art of Noise. Now, if you are interested in synth pop and its origins, you certainly have heard of The Art of Noise. If not, probably not. This was a group of folks who were not your standard type of backgrounds that you would have for people forming a musical group. Not like a guitarist, a bassist, a drummer, a vocalist, and maybe a keyboardist. In this case, you had Gary Langan and J.J. Jaselic, who were programmers and engineers for the synthesizers. Ann Dudley, who did have classical music training, and so had keyboard player and composer. Trevor Horn, who also had musical background. In addition to being a producer, primarily, he was also half of the founding members of the Bugles, who gave us that seminal bit of pop culture history, Video Killed the Radio Star, the first song ever played, the first video ever played on MTV, back when MTV played music videos. So there was, and then the fifth member was Paul Morley, who was a music journalist. From what I gather, was not a big musical contributor to the group, although he did come up with a name based on a futuristic essay called The Art of Noises, and at J.J. Jaselic's insistence, changing it to just the singular, The Art of Noise, which also reflected not only the concept that these folks had of the music that they were putting out, but of how they saw themselves. That they tried to create an image of a non-band band. Infrequent public appearances, often wearing masks when they did. They wanted to some extent, I guess, be perceived as the intermediaries between the instrument and the sounds that you heard. So the influence of this Fairlight LCI sampler can be heard in a lot of the music of that era that preceded them, and is what sort of brought them together in different combinations. I don't believe any of them were involved with Naked Eyes, but that was a contemporary act of that era that never even toured because they couldn't figure out how to take that technology out live. And then various members of the group were involved with ABC, I believe, Spandau Ballet, and all of them, except for Morley, had worked together for Yes's comeback album, 90125, if I've got the digits in the right order. I was not a big Yes fan, but I think I've got that, and their classic hit, Owner of a Lonely Heart. And you can hear some of the sampler influence in that song as well. And so after working with Yes, they then got together and formed this group. And so without further ado, we're going to just jump right into it now. This is The Art of Noise with Close to the Edit.
the time with my love, close to the edge.
There you have it, folks. Close to the Edit. Not a song you're ever likely to have heard topping the charts of the American Top 40, that's for sure. Although it was a breakout hit for them over in England, and as I've mentioned, there's going to be a number of songs in this program that will be perhaps more well-known in England, Ireland, or other parts of Europe than they are here in the United States of America. And certainly songs known here in the States that will be lesser known over in Europe. And songs that just in general will be lesser known to anyone, such as early on in this podcast with Swanky Modes from that lesser known film Tapeheads. Now this song, Close to the Edit, a rather interesting story how they came about with this title and the song. It was released on their debut album, their debut LP, 1984's Who's Afraid of the Art of Noise. The year earlier was their debut EP, which included the song Beatbox. And that song was then remastered and re-edited into Beatbox Diversion 2, which was released as, with both versions on a 12-inch single with Moments in Love, a longer song of theirs on the other side. And then for this album, they put on Who's Afraid of the Art of Noise, the Diversion 1 of Beatbox, and then another edit to the remastered version, the Diversion 1, or Diversion 2, whichever the second one was, that they basically cut 20 seconds and added a little bit to it, so it was really pretty identical. It's very different from Beatbox, but it's close to the edit of Beatbox, thus close to the edit. They had a number of other hits, mostly with collaborations with other artists, not entirely. But they did win a Grammy for working with Dwayne Eddy in their cover of the Peter Gunn theme. They also worked with Tom Jones in their cover of the Prince song Kiss. And perhaps the most purely 80s combo of theirs was when their song Paranoia about sleep deprivation. And for the video of that and the remastered version of the song, they added in the voice of Max Headroom. Actor Matt Frewer lent his computer-generated voice and face to the video and voice to the music from the Max Headroom character of the mid-'80s, which had a very short-lived, occasionally brilliant and occasionally terrible TV series, depending on which episode you caught. And of course, Max Headroom was just saturated on TV commercials to the point of overkill. I did have one other interesting point that I wanted to bring up about the Art of Noise and their concept of themselves as a band. And at this point, what I would like to discuss is the band. For those of you not familiar with these artists, the band was a group of musicians. The group was founded in 1967, I think, if I have that right. And this was a group of artists who had overlapping talents. And really had performed as the Hawks when they were backup artists. But when they started recording and writing their own music, I mean, they had four different vocalists, 2 different drum players. Their drummers, one of them could play the keyboards, the other played guitar. There was a lot of overlap in talent and multi-talented individuals within the group. And they hadn't decided on a name, and people just kept referring to themselves as the band, and that's what they wound up being called. It just stuck, is sort of the general sense of the background. There's some varying stories. But basically, the band they were the band. They were just not individual band members made up of a guitarist, a bassist, a drummer, that type of thing, much like the Art of Noise. And I would, in fact, argue that in the same way that the band had a name that reflected how the artists viewed themselves as a unit and how they viewed the music that they put out, I would argue that the Art of Noise is just an extension of that into the electronic era. And so for anyone out there who's familiar with both bands, let me know in the comments below what you think of that argument. Is the Art of Noise just the same concept as the band, only next generation going into electronic instead of Americana music? And by the way, any other bands you can think of that might fit that bill? You know, the one that's crossed my mind, I think qualifies, would be AC/DC. I think that kind of reflects how they view themselves as a band and how they view their music. But I'm curious if anyone has any other ideas on artists whose name reflects not only how they view themselves as a unit, but how they view the music that they're putting out. So let me know in the comments below. And if you're new to the channel here, don't forget to click on that subscribe button. Knock on that notifications bell there if you want to hear about upcoming episodes. There's going to be a whole bunch of more music coming out. Click on that like button, really appreciate that. And as I've said, let me know in your comments if you have any thoughts on my comparison between the names, the band, and the Art of Noise, and if you have any other ideas besides AC/DC as to who might fit the bill of that description. For now, though, until next week when I'll be bringing out the first female artist for this program, long overdue that I got one on. She's a very powerful artist who had a real sudden burst into fame in the United States, and just as quickly burst of infamy, and although still recorded, never really gained ground in the United States again. That'll be coming up next. But for now, I'm Bill Young. As always, may the best of your past be the worst of your future. Thanks so much for watching. Bye now.
Swing doors, huh? Okay, doors. Swing